Now that we have our three equations with three unknowns, we can begin to calculate the value of B1. Before we do, let's review what our three equations are and what they mean. This is our first equation, this is our second equation, and this is our third equation. The first equation says that B1 times the sum of the squares of x1 plus B2 times the sum of x1 times x2 plus B0 times the sum of x1 times x0 equals the sum of x1, y. Each of the other equations is interpreted similarly. Now, in order to find the value of B1, we're going to use successive elimination. So, in this cell, I'm going to say that the value here is equal to B15. And I'm going to drag that across so that now I have essentially just reproduced this line and this line. Next, I'm going to develop an equation that includes only B1 and B2. This means I'll eliminate B0. In order to do that, what I'm going to do in cell A20 is say that A20 is equal to this value in D15, which is the coefficient of B0 in the first equation, divided by the coefficient of B0 in the second equation. And this is the result. Now I'm going to multiply each value in this equation by this value. So the first value will be equal A2 times B16. Now I'm going to fix the A20 with an F4, and when I hit enter, I get this value. Now, dragging this all the way across, I've now multiplied 13.55 times each of these values. And if you'll notice, the coefficient on B0 is 2725, exactly the same as the coefficient above. Now I'm going to subtract this row from this row. Equal this minus this. And when I drag that subtraction all the way across, I now have 0 for the coefficient of B0. I have essentially eliminated B0 from the equation, and now I know that B1 times 37543 plus B2 times a minus 9697 equals 148646. The next step will be to create a second equation which has only B1 and B2 coefficients. To do that, I will again copy the first line and now I'm going to eliminate the value for B0 from this equation. To do that, I will say that this is equal to 2725 divided by 10, or 272.5, and now I will multiply 272.5 times each of these values. So the first one will be equal to A24 and F4 times 2725, and I'll drag this across. And again I have a 2725 as the value by which the coefficient B0 is multiplied. So now I will do the same thing I did before. I'll copy this row and paste it here, and since referencing in Excel is relative. Basically what I'm doing is subtracting this value from this value, this value from this value, and so on. And you'll see that I again have a 0 in the B0 position. I now have two equations with two unknowns. B1 times this value plus B2 times this value equals this value. And B1 times this value plus B2 times this value equals this value. Now I'm going to eliminate B2 from these two equations. To do that, I will say that this is equal to the first of these two equations, and I'll copy that clear across. And now I will say here that this value is equal to this minus 9697 divided by 1052.5. So the multiplier here will be minus 9.213. Now I will say that this value is equal to that minus 9.213 times 51812, and I'll drag that value all the way across. Now as you can see, these two values are exactly equal. So when I subtract, I now have a 0 in the B2 coefficient position. So what I have is B1 times 514908 is equal to minus 1937248. Now we can use simple algebra to say that B1 is equal to minus 1937248 divided by 514908. And the coefficient for B1 is minus 3.76, which is exactly the same value that we got when we used the multiple regression add-in for Excel. We could go on to calculate the values for B2 and B0 in the same way.